So, welcome to the show, a gold medaler and, of course, an author of rhythmic fingerwork. I'm sure everyone will recognize the name. Jim McGillivray. How are you, Jim? Are you well?
I'm doing well, Reb. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Well, I have to say, yeah, total disclosure for everyone listening right now, I'm completely starstruck. So, if I come across as nervous, I absolutely am. Yeah.
I'm harmless, I can assure you.
Well, the reason I wanted to catch up with you really is because I know you've been doing a lot of work recently online, and we'll get into all of that. But first of all, I'm sure a lot of people are aware of your website and everything, where you deal a lot in vintage bagpipes. Do you want to tell us a bit about that? How is trade at the moment?
Trade's pretty good. I suppose like anything else in retail, it's a bit streaky. It was very slow, as you might imagine, during the pandemic. Hardly any pipes moved at all, and even within 6 or 8 months after the pandemic, there was not much movement in vintage pipes. But since then, it's been very steady. Yeah,
I
I
see.
I have no shortage of pipes.
Oh, that's great to hear. Yeah. Well, for people who are interested, you can go and visit the website here, piping.on.ca, and that's where you carry out all of your dealing with vintage pipes. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So, right, we've got questions in from listeners then. Obviously, whenever you're dealing with vintage pipes online, it can be a bit of a minefield. You just don't know what you're buying. So, have you any words of advice then for folks out there wanting to buy that vintage set of bagpipes?
Yeah, there's several people dealing in vintage bagpipes around the world right now, and I mean I'm one of them, so I have a little self-interest here. But if you deal with some of the folks who deal in pipes, I think you have a much better chance of getting a good instrument than you do dealing online by yourself. Lots
Yeah.
of people get great pipes online, but I've heard some horror stories as well. I have lots of bad. I buy all of my pipes remotely, almost all of them remotely. So I'm working from pictures and people's descriptions. And I'm not going to say all the people I deal with are good. And sometimes I will get a set that has some problems that the seller never knew the bagpipe had.
Mm.
So yeah, I buy a few vintage bagpipes and take losses on them because they weren't what I expected. So you realize you're always taking a chance. Keep your eyes open for scams. Um, they're often visible by unusual wording in the description or an unusual email. Just be buyer beware in all of these situations. It's be hesitant, ask all the questions. There are no stupid questions when you're buying a $5,000 bagpipe from 10,000 miles away. So, and don't be afraid to bounce things off your friends and knowledgeable people.
Yeah,
Take
that
care. Take
that
care is the end message, I guess.
absolutely. We have heard some stories from listeners who have tried to buy bagpipes through the likes of Facebook Marketplace, and they're asking questions. Can I see the board? Can I see a little close up of the tuning slides and stuff? And they don't get any backward and forward with the seller. So is that an immediate red flag? I guess.
Well, to me, it is for two reasons. One, does the person actually have the bagpipe in their possession?
Mm,
And two, why are they being so reticent in giving up information? Yeah, I'd
yeah.
shut that one down pretty quickly.
That's it. Ourselves in the Big Rab Show, we fell foul of this ourselves. We seen a set of pipes, set of Robertsons, and we thought, wow, they look really cool. And we thought we'd share them out there to draw attention to it. And then the more we kind of dug into the advert, as you said, the wording of it didn't make sense. you know, and so it's little details like that. And even, I suppose, I don't know, we found this quite common with vintage pipes is that the stocks are mostly cracked on most sets that we see. Is that a common occurrence, Jim?
I very well, let's put it this way. When I'm dealing in cocos wood and ebony pipes, it's not in fact, almost never do I receive an ebony pipe that doesn't have a crack in it.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful wood, but it's very volatile. Cocos wood less so, but we will get cracks there as well. Black wood is fairly resilient.
Mm.
But yeah, cracks. Well, one of the other problem you can have with old sets is if they haven't been played in a long time, the cracks, if there are cracks, the cracks will close up and become invisible.
I
And you can't
see.
even, it's hard to see them even with a magnifying glass. As soon as you start to play and the moisture gets into the pipes, the cracks open up. That's why people say, oh, my pipes cracked when I started to play them. And that's the reason the cracks were already there. Cracks are
Yeah.
not cracks are not the be all and the end all. Cracks can be invisible whipped, so they're not really visible anymore and will not open up again.
I see. That's it. And that's one of the things that we found is quite common, as you mentioned there. As people start to play them, that's when they start to notice these little faults. But there are people who are really proficient at doing repair work, I guess. And so did you offer that kind of service yourself, Jim, with
I
sets that you
don't
sell?
myself. I have a company in the province here, Dunbar Bagpipes, who are about 90 minutes away from me, and they do all my refurbs and they do
Hmm.
fantastic work for me.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Well, I have to say, those people who do the repair work, they're absolute legends. I don't know how they do it. But yeah, they make it look easy for sure. So yeah, our recommendation, obviously, that if you are going to be getting a vintage set, then go to a reputable supplier, and yourself being one of them, Jim. So just to talk about the website again, yeah. So piping.on.ca, that's where you should go. So not only on vintage pipes, though, I have to say, you're selling a lot of other stuff like accessories, chanters, a lot of stuff over there on the website. You're an incredibly busy man.
Well, I am busy. It's I consider my piping website a more of a piping boutique. I don't do uniforms and I do basic piping supplies and instruments and products that I have played and believe in as well. So
Hmm.
I'm not a be all end all store, but everything I have I will stand behind.
Absolutely. So there you go. I know it sounds like a big shameless plug right at the very beginning of the chat, but absolutely. I've been so enjoying this website for sure. And yeah, I'm going to get into another shameless plug here. And I know this interview seems to be that's all it is, but I have to talk about pipe tunes. Oh my word. What a resource. I have been absolutely glued to this. Pipetunes.ca. Jim, tell us about this website.
Um, the idea came to me back around 2005. I was, I teach at a private boys' school here, and I go to our instrumental music department, and I just noticed that they but don't, when they need a tune, they don't give everybody a book, they give them the sheet music, and they're able to buy
Yeah.
the sheet music. And I said to myself, why can't we do this? And I thought, well, maybe we can. So I found some folks who were able to build the website for me. I took about 2 years to typeset and record about 1,000 tunes, and then I launched it in 2007. So folks can go on to the website and browse the catalog. They can listen to tunes and decide what they want, and then purchase the PDF.
There you go. And I think that's what makes this site really quite unique. That once you've identified the tune that you're interested in, you can also hear a recording of it. A lot of places do kind of give you the manuscript and that's it. But these have recordings, so you can learn it and practice it along with you playing it, Jim. Yeah,
That's correct.
that's it. But I have to say, for me, being a complete piping nerd, okay, this little section here, composers' bios, oh my word. Like you could pick a random, I don't know, like there's John McCall, like, just pick a random person and the amount of history on offer here on every composer listed is just incredible. So I dare say this took quite a bit of research, Jim, to put together.
It did, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm really lucky that
Mm.
I get to spend my life doing something I love. So doing this, it's kind of historical work and putting it out so people can see who these people are and what they mean to us was really important to me.
Absolutely. So that we're right now for those watching the video now, we're looking at Dr. John McCaskill. So that's not just the players from back in the 1800s or earlier. That they're also up to the modern day as well. Yeah. So I don't know. I have been absolutely glued to this website, and I'm only really just scratching the surface here. So what are your plans for pipe tunes in the future? Then, do you think you'll have any more composers adding to the site?
I'd like to. At some point, I continue to add tunes to it, mostly in the summer when I'm off work.
Hmm.
Once I fully retire from teaching at the school here, then I'll get back into doing, I think, more bios and getting more tunes on it as well. I think there's around I think we have around 2,900 tunes right now,
Wow.
and I find I would like to get more modern compositions. That's a lot. There's a lot of legwork and turning people up and getting them to actually send you the music and then making
Yeah.
sure they get paid royalties and that sort of thing. So that's all for a time when hopefully I will have a bit more time.
There you go.
But
But
I continue to expand. I continue to expand the catalog.
yes, that's it. So it's a continuous work in progress, really. Yeah. So that's I would have to recommend this to everyone, really, who's ever on the lookout for bagpipe sheet music or anything, or even just to delve through the history. Go to pipetunes.ca. So yeah, an absolutely fantastic resource. So Jim, thank you for this and keep up the great work with that. Yeah.
Thank you.
So that's two big plugs out of the way. Okay. Now I want to get into some nitty gritty now. Yeah, obviously, you're quite a prolific tutor and writer over this last while of various different tutor books and technique. Um, for those who listening to the show right now, we would get a lot of beginners who would consider, right, oh, I'm listening to a piping podcast. I'm interested in this bagpipe thing. Maybe I should lift a practice chanter and see how it go. Have you any recommendations or words of advice for those lifting that chanter for the very first time?
For the very first time, I would say do whatever you can to find a good instructor.
Mm,
I know a lot of the tutors out there are written sort of with the idea that folks might be able to self-study, and it works to a certain extent. But if you can still self-study, but if you can find someone who can direct you, um, warn you of the pitfalls, let you know when you're going down a wrong road. Um, some people need an instructor more than others. Some are able to self-teach more than others. I had a fellow teacher at school who decided he wanted to learn pipes, and we gave him the Piping Center Blue Tutor. And he worked through the thing over the course of a year, 14 months. He would come to see me every 6 weeks or so and say, am I doing this right? And lo and behold, in about a year, we got him on bagpipes. So,
wow.
yeah, if you can align yourself with someone who knows what they're doing, it's going to save you a lot of grief.
There you go. Yeah. And of course, there are a lot of great, fantastic online resources now, for sure. But there's nothing beats that one-to-one kind of tuition with someone who's paying keen attention, I would argue.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So then, obviously, for someone who is making that transition, it's a huge moment then from setting the practice chanter down to lifting this instrument that takes so much to try and handle. What do you think are some of the most common errors that you find when someone lifts that instrument for the first time and they start trying to play Tripping Up the Stairs or Pumpkin's Fancy or whatever? Is there any common mistakes, do you find?
Well, you lift up the bagpipe for the first time, and it's for most people, it's all they can do to get a sound out of the chanter,
Yeah.
even with the drones corked up. So that's a transition. That's a difficult period for most pipers. They've gone 10 months or a year or 14 months. They got their tunes off. They're ready to get
Mm.
their bagpipes, and all of a sudden they're handed this contraption that's a hell of a hard to blow, and then when you blow it, then it stops, and you got it. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's quite a thing. The most important thing when people first get on pipes is get the blowing and squeezing down correctly. I have people play what I call a slow scale, so they're required to take 3 breaths on every note as they work their way up the scale. So their focus is constantly on blowing and squeezing. Not
Mhm.
getting
Yeah.
that right can have real repercussions.
Well, if anything, Jim, I know I'm being completely selfish here now, but that's exactly where I am right now. I am trying my best to learn how to blow steady. And I've been using a lot of your instructional videos to try and help with that.
Good.
So that brings me on to another shameless plug. Yay, there you go. I have to talk about your new YouTube channel because it's been so helpful for me this last while.
Thank you.
Yeah, tell us about this and your new YouTube channel.
Well, this only came up a few months ago. Um, Well, as you know, I back around 2002, me with another team of people created two what were at that time videos, and then became DVDs. One was
Mm.
a video that was about an hour and 20 minutes on maintenance. It was called Pipes Ready. And then the second one was a 2 hour video on tuning that was
Yes.
called Pipes Up. So I sold those for many, many years. And then a friend of mine, a good friend of mine named Andrew Giles, who is also president of the Pipers and Pipe Band Society of Ontario right now, asked me if I'd ever considered breaking these videos up and offering them for free on a YouTube channel.
Mm.
And I said, no, I hadn't. And he said, what do you think? And I said, yes, let's do that. And with his help, we broke the original videos up, and they are now up on the site, tuning and maintenance, lots of tuning and maintenance issues. And then in September, I started making some new videos, um, addressing things that weren't addressed in the maintenance and tuning videos. I don't have to do much maintenance and tuning because they're covered by the original videos. But I'm going through, at the present time, I think we've made about 15, 14 new videos. I'm doing individual pieces of technique, maintenance issues that haven't been addressed yet. I'm doing individual tunes. We'll have Donald McLean's Farewell to Oban will be coming out very shortly. So right now I'm doing a mix of topics just to see what people grab onto.
I see. Well, I I was aware of your original two DVDs. I never purchased them at the time because I was a drummer back then. But now I'm a piper. These videos are so valuable. Like even from, as you mentioned there, even showing you how to hemp a set of pipes, and how to calibrate drone reeds, how to tune the thing. But for me, big time, I've been using your video talking about blowing techniques and everything. It's been absolutely fascinating. And even recently, as you mentioned, this new one that you're working on now called the Pipe Box, and we're working on E Dublins, and that was fantastic. I sat for ages after that. Must have been the guts of an hour just sitting doing E Dublins up and down the scale. It was so cool. So, how have you found the reaction to your YouTube channel? Have you had much feedback?
Yeah, I'm getting comments. The comments are generally, well, not generally, they're all good. People seem to like my approach.
Mm.
They're encouraging me to do more. Um, we seem to be getting lots of views, and the subscribers are going up. So yeah, I'm just going to keep adding them and just and keep riding along.
There you go. Well, and again, I know I would encourage people to go and check it out. Because ourselves in the Rap Show, we've been doing YouTube clips and stuff this last while for the longest time. But this is such a great resource, especially, for the basic questions for people that might ask, how do I tune these three drones? And or my chanter seems out of tune. How do I fix it? Things like that. And people might be kind of scared to ask their tutor for fear of asking a stupid question. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think it's so useful for sure. Well, let's talk about the full story then. Once you've transitioned from practice chanter onto pipes, you're now able to blow steady, have them tuned. Then what is the next step then? How do you approach advanced playing, I guess?
Well, by advanced, what would you mean?
Well, you're looking at competitive tunes then, I would reckon. Yeah, playing
Yes. Well,
competitively. Yeah.
yeah. Well, by the time we're looking at competitive tunes, I'm hoping that my pupil has good technique.
Yes. Yeah.
That's absolutely essential. And if they do, then we start into a competition tune, and we may start it pretty slowly. I'm a great believer that you don't you don't play faster than your hands can handle. You don't play at a speed where your technique is falling apart and your notes aren't clear. If that's happening, you're playing too quickly. The biggest problem I see with well, advanced beginners and even intermediates is playing too quickly when they're learning the tunes
Yes.
and sloughing over technique. Um, it's your technique. What happens if you're playing a tune over and over again with, say, bad Torluas?
Hmm.
Is you're playing bad Torluas all the time, and you're going to get really good at playing bad Torluas.
Yeah,
And the
you
more
sort
you
of
play them,
ingrain that habit, I guess. Yeah.
it's just like if you were practicing good Torluas, you're going to get good at it. So, I make sure that the technique is all under control, and the tune I select for the pupil is appropriate to the technique they have.
I see. That's an interesting one as well. So sometimes we hear quite a lot of advanced players, but they do reach too far almost. And a tune that's packed filled with all sorts of ornamentation in there, and it's nearly too much. And
Yeah, yeah,
the
you'll
technique
do better
fails.
as a judge, as someone who judges contests. I would say you do better playing an easier tune well than a hard tune in mediocre fashion.
There you go. Yeah. And the same could be said for bands as well, as well as soloists. So technique is king, I believe. Yeah. They were. That's interesting. Yeah. So, well, obviously, yourself, you've been incredibly successful in solo piping and in bands as well. And I have to ask you, has there ever been a moment where you've kind of sat back and while playing and thought, "Wow, look where I am"? Has there been like one standout moment to you in your piping career?
Um, has there? For me, I suppose it was the day I got the clasp at Inverness, I
Yeah.
think. Um, and that's I remember almost every second of it, and exactly how I felt. It was not something I expected. It exceeded my dreams. So that was sort of the pinnacle of competition for me. And as you probably know, I stopped competing when I was only 36 years old. A lot of the people I was competing with in the 80s and 90s are still competing today. Folks like Jack Lee and Willie McCallum and Angus McCall, they're
Yeah.
all still competing today. But yeah, that was my great point.
There you
I've had
go.
lots of other great points in piping since then, but that's the memorable one.
That's what that yeah, for sure. That's a good answer right there. So I have to say though, from going from the competitive scene then to the world of tuition and helping other players, I guess. We've talked about tuition this last while about the learner has a responsibility on learning, obviously, but the tutor also has a responsibility on trying to cater that their method of tuition, I guess. Some people learn by just hearing it, some people learn by seeing it, that things like that. Have you developed your own tuition over the years, Jim?
Um, what can I say about? I think I cater my tuition is, and I think any good tutor, their tuition is catered towards what works for the pupil, and it
Yeah.
may take a while before you finally learn. Okay, this is what we need to sit here and look at the music and point
Mm,
out this, and we need to put marks on the music. And then other people, you can put the marks on the music, and it's like you never put anything on the music. And
there you go.
so yeah, you have to work your way around that. But for me, it's always the most important thing is to maintain interest.
Right. I
And while
see.
I'm trying to make things better, I'm always trying to introduce new things. So I'm not sending the poor student home this week with exactly the same stuff as he had last week.
Yeah.
Make sure that the pupil has always got something interesting to do next.
Yeah. See, so they're always getting some form of value from each lesson, I
Yeah,
guess. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
That's great. Yeah. So they can always carry something through into the next lesson to keep them interested. Yeah. There you are. Well, I've asked you some real hard hitting questions there, Jim. So that's fantastic. Thank you for answering those. But we have some big rap show staples that we ask everybody who comes on
Okay.
the show. And I have to ask you. So I have to ask you, Jim McGillivray, what is your favorite cheese?
My favorite cheese is brie.
Oh, good choice. Actually, that's quite a popular one, I have to say. There you go. And I have to say, again, I know it's a huge shameless plug, but if you haven't checked out any of the resources, please do. And one that I would definitely point you to is the latest work that Jim's been doing here on Pipe Tunes on YouTube. So go along, give him a subscribe, and delve into the wealth of information that's there for sure. So, rolling into the future, I dare say there'll be continued work on pipetunes.ca as well as the YouTube channel. Have you any big plans coming up in the next few months?
Um, I've got some judging trips coming up, but aside from that, the to actually, I'm trying to do a video a week. So that's tightened up my schedule a little bit. So hoping to get over to Inverness in September.
Oh, excellent. Yeah.
Will presumably be my next trip to Scotland. But yeah, as I say, the current project is a YouTube channel and seeing where that takes us. So it's engaging and I'm enjoying it, and it seems to be getting a good response. So onward and upwards.
Oh, I've been really enjoying it. So thank you for all of your work. It's been fantastic. Yeah, just tuning in and watching all of it. So I think the number one thing to take away from this interview is technique is king. Make sure you're practicing all those GDE grace notes. I know they're boring, but you need to practice. Yeah. Thank you so much, Jim, for joining us on the podcast this week. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
My pleasure, Rab. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.